Today we're dealing with a full pecker brisket, USDA prime beef. Total net weight is 12.5 pounds prior to trimming. I always take my brisket out of the packaging and rinse it under water, cold water. Today I'm using a semi-stiff boning knife. Basically going to go ahead and just start trimming off the thick fat that we don't want on this brisket. I normally take it down to about 1/4 inch. So you're going to get some really heavy chunks off here that just would not break down when you're cooking it. So I'll slowly just take a little bit of layer off after layer. That way I'm not taking it too low.
By the way, my dog does love beef brisket too.
There we go. So I started to pierce the meat right there. So I'm not going to go any lower than that. So on the top portion here, all I'm going to do is really, I don't know if you can see it, but there's a lot of silver skin. I hate biting into silver skin. So I do take a thin layer of this top portion of the meat off. To really avoid biting into that. I feel like it makes it a really thick, kind of like a chewy bite. So I take just an ever so slight layer off here. Looks a lot better. So you got a little skin there, so I'm going to trim away. So you can see like the fat striations here are going this way, so we want to cut this way. So what I normally do is I'll just take a chunk, and I know right here this is my flat end, this is the end. I'm going to start, when I finish this flat after the cook, I'm going to have to slice this way. I'll know that from that little cut there I made. This chunk here might just be a huge piece of fat. Yeah, I don't want that. As you can see, it's not really good, but it's really thin here. That's thinner than I like it because this fat kind of protects the meat when it's smoking. So I'll take this fat down to about 1/4 inch. I can just kind of gauge it by. Oh, I hit meat there, so see there, you can kind of see I started going down. I saw the meat. Pulled the knife up, started coming up, saw a little bit of meat, pulled the knife up. I just want to keep a nice consistent slice now. And you can see right here on this is the flat. I mean that's perfect right there. That's perfect. Alright, that's a good fat cap to me. So the next thing is this big portion here, and basically what all this fat is, it goes all the way around here. This brisket has a really big flat and a really small point, which is exactly what I wanted. You basically just want to follow this line right here. You want to follow that line, making sure you're right between.
So another thing I didn't mention, but by trimming in between this fat here, you're going to be able to season both sides of that meat, allowing you to get a better bark for your flat and a better bark for your point. This just allows you to get more flavor on the backside.
Pretty much right there. I don't want to go any deeper than that. I'm just going to take this fat off right here.
I am speeding up the video here. This whole trimming process took me about 30 minutes, so I'm really trying to condense this video down to show you the key points. So as long as you're focused on just taking the fat to about 1/4 inch or a little bit lower on both the top and bottom side of this meat, just getting off those thick pieces of fat, you're going to be golden.
I'm leaving just enough fat where when I cook it, it's going to keep this inside. When this is down, it's going to keep my point muscle here. going to keep that tender. But when I'm cooking it, all this fat will break down into the meat. It'll keep it moist. But when it's finished cooking, it's not going to be, you know, some big chunk that I'm biting into. If you don't go in here and make this cut, yeah, you're going to have really tender meat. But you're also going to have bites where it's just nothing but fat. And I hate that. So if you go ahead and just trim it real evenly, as best as you can. I know some people are going to go, oh my God, he's cutting all the fat out and he's ruining the brisket. But I'm telling you, if you trim it down, you leave a little fat between these muscles, you inject it. I'm going to inject my flat. I'm going to inject my point. You're going to get great results. It's going to be juicy as ever. You're going to see here a little bit later. We're going to get great results. It's only a 12 pounder, and after we take off all the fat we cut off, I bet you're down to probably close to 11 pounds. So I'm aiming for about a 12-hour cook here. So I mean, this is your finished product here. This is what, you know, the bottom half of a brisket should look like. The non-fat cap side. We don't have any, you know, thick fat on here. I mean, this just looks beautiful. No silver skin. We trimmed all the silver skin. It's prime cut, so you can see all the fat striations going with the grain here. We've made our cut against the grain, so after we're finished cooking, we know we slice this way. I want to slice just like that, all the way up. So I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna throw this brisket on the tray. And then that way tonight I don't gotta fuss with trimming it. Throw this back in the fridge, wrap it with some foil. It's about 5:30 in the morning. I want to get this brisket injected early. That way I can put it back in the fridge, let the injection sit for about 4 hours before I throw it on the smoker. I'm using Butcher's Barbecue Prime Brisket Injection. And what I do is I just go ahead and do about 3 scoops of this and put it in a shaker bottle. And they say to use beef broth. I just use water. On the directions it says that's supposed to be enough for 2 briskets. I just get a whole bottle full. I don't want to have to worry about running out of liquid. And I don't really measure it either. I just inject as much as I can. I've never had an issue doing it that way either. A lot of people do the little bit of up and down motion because they don't want a injection pocket. I'm not so concerned. So you kind of just push it in there and start at the bottom, work your way to the top. And there's an action shot for you of injection shooting out. That's kind of why I keep my hand covered over it. Every possible area. So we went ahead and I injected that whole liquid. That's all I got left. I just dumped the pan. So I mean, we have quite a bit of liquid in there, probably almost close to 2 cups now. So all I'm going to do is flip it around, make sure I didn't miss any of these injection sites here on the flat. That's my most important cut for my cook. So I'm going to go ahead and use the remaining of that to try to fill any gaps I might have. See, I'm getting quite a bit more liquid in here. So once you pull out of the fridge, the main thing you want to do is wipe down any excess injection. I'm going to cook this fat cap down. Most of my heat in my cooker comes from the bottom on the YS640. And I also know that with the fat cap, the grease starts to pool in the top, and I feel like that kind of ruins the bark development. So I just want that grease to hit the bottom of my diffuser plate, and then it'll steam back up with the heat. So mainly I'm going to be doing salt and pepper for my seasoning, just 50% iodized salt and 50% ground black peppercorn. And then just to give it a little sweetness, I'm using the Killer Hogs, the barbecue rub. Just put a little sugar on there, give it some good color. So I'm just going to apply a nice layer of salt and pepper. Color, give it some sweetness. I'm not going to overdo it. That's about good right there. Over. Do the same thing. I'm going to pat dry this side. Just even that out. Get a little bit heavier on this side. Oh, and I almost forgot. I want to make sure I hit the inside here. Allows us to get a little extra flavor on these pieces here. So here's the YS640. I got it set to 275 degrees. Unfortunately, it's raining outside, and this runs off electricity. So all I've done is I've angled the smokestack to shoot outside my garage. Since this cooker uses positive airflow, it really does not affect any of the performance of this cooker to do it that way. So like I said, I'm going to throw this on the top rack. And I'm going to do fat cap down. See, fat cap down. Most of my heat is coming from the fire pot over here. And I am going to angle the point to be near the fire pot, since this is obviously my thickest part of the meat, where the point and the flat connect. It's a little bit thinner down here. It's just flat meat. It's been about an hour and a half. It's so cold outside that I'm having to run the pit at about 290 degrees to maintain an upper rack of about 240. So what I'm going to do is I have a Mojo cube, and this is awesome for pellet smokers. And all you do is you put it right above the fire pot. But what it does is it just starts smoldering, so it's a big block of cherry wood. So it'll help add smoke to the brisket. Since I'm running this temp so hot on the bottom fire pot, I'm not getting a lot of smoke production, and I definitely want to pull some of that smoky flavor in. So by adding that Mojo cube in, it's basically kind of like a pellet tube or like a pellet tray here. Here's what those Mojo cubes look like. It says gas grill on charcoal or a pellet smoker. Alright, we're about 2 hours into the cook now. I'm gonna just pop it open, show you guys what it looks like. Sitting at about 264 degrees. Right now I got the Yoder set at about 300. It's reading 330 right now, so it's a little hot. You can see all that smoke production. It's hard to see because my garage isn't that dark, but here's that Mojo cube, as you can see, just right in front of the fire pot, and it's just smoking. It's smoking away. But we're starting to get some good color. Starting to darken up just a little bit. Alright, it's been about 7 hours now since we put this on the pit. My internal just hit about 167. I came out, took a look at it, the bark's right where I want it to be. So I'm going to go ahead and take this off the pit. wrapping in butcher paper today.
Wrapping in butcher paper is really the perfect balance between tinfoil and not wrapping at all. You retain the moisture as if it's wrapped in tinfoil, but with butcher paper, you also retain the bark as if you don't wrap at all.
I mean, that is just, that's beautiful. Juicy. And spraying it about every 2 hours.
So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up in butcher paper. I'm just going to wrap it twice.
So this brisket has been on for 10 hours now. I just went out and probed it. It's right where I want it. So I'm going to quickly show this to you guys before I put it in the cooler. When you're probing it, you want this to probe in and out with little resistance. It'd be similar to if you were putting this probe into a thing of butter at home. So I know that's right where I want it. So I've let the steam out. I don't want it to cook any longer. I think I hit 198 degrees. I was aiming for 195, and I'm going to throw it in the cooler for probably about an hour or two. So I just tossed it in the cooler here. I'm going to throw a nice clean towel right over the top of it. All the while I'm letting the juices redistribute back in the brisket. So all I'm going to do now is just separate my point from my flat. For the most part here. I'm going to move the point back over to the juices while I trim the flat. So now from our flat we can see right here was the corner that I cut off. So I know my grain's going this way. I'm going to slice this way. And we're going to do our slices about a pencil width. So just do a couple slices here. There we go. It's got the bend test. Still really juicy. I mean, look at that, just fall apart.
Just look how juicy this thing is.
Plenty of juice running through there.
That's good.
It's always good when you get your woman to sign off on your smoked brisket, but I mean, as you can see here, it's just perfectly tender, perfectly juicy.
Wow. That is so tender. For what was left over after the cook here, as you can just go ahead and if you really want to make them juicy, or even if you want to save them for when you're reheating this brisket up, but a lot of times you can go through back on these slices like this and just paste it, a little bit of that juice, and I mean, it really just gets that juiciness back in it. And you can just kind of paste over it, gives it a really clean look, and it definitely gives it a ton of flavor. All right, the very last thing we're going to do is just go ahead, and this is the point. We're going to cut this point muscle, and we're going to go ahead and make burn ends. So I'm going to just do some generous sized cubes. Turn them over. I'm going to go ahead and cube them up. So I'm going to toss them in the pan. Alright, once you get them cubed up like this, I just go ahead and grab your favorite barbecue sauce. This is a good one I've been using lately. Just give them a little dousing of the BBQ. And then take some of your favorite rub. I'm going to go ahead and keep using the Killer Hogs. And just sprinkle some rub back on them. Alright. Then you just toss them. Once I'm done tossing here, I'm just gonna go ahead. I'm gonna toss them. You can toss them back on the smoker. I shut the smoker down, trying to save a little bit of my pellet consumption here. So I'm just gonna toss this in the oven, probably about 250 degrees, and just kind of let this barbecue sauce caramelize on the cubes. And as soon as that caramelizes, I'd say probably a good 30 minutes or so, I'll pull them back off. And this is what they should look like. They're finally caramelized. And that's how you cook a full packer brisket.